Hey everyone, Brandon here with Galloway Precision. Today we're going to go over the installation of our short stroke trigger for the G3, G3c series of pistols. This one will have the pre-travel stop to shorten the double action a little bit. And the next one, the flat face, is being worked on. It'll have its own safety blade and everything. But the installation video will be the same for both. With the exception of you'll have to change the spring out. You'll take the stock safety blade spring and put it in ours, but we still got some work to do before we even get to that level. So today we'll just be going over the curved, but with the exception of the safety blade, like I said, when the flat comes out, it'll be exactly the same. Okay, so tools you're gonna need your bench block, need a shepherd's crook or 90-degree angle pick, small flathead screwdriver, 1/16 punch, 3/32 punch, 050 Allen wrench, set of small needle nose pliers, brass and polymer hammer. So let's go ahead and lock and clear. We're visually and physically empty, so we're going to go ahead and metal splinter. Take the slide off. Set the slide off to the side. We're going to start with our 3/32 punch. Alright, we're going to drive out the two big frame pins first. The one in the front, and the one in the back. Like my super glued thumb. I was putting this thing back stock to film this for you guys, and the damn trigger turn spring bit me good. Alright, now we'll take our 1/16 and drive out the last frame pin. Alright. Well, almost. There we go. Set our frame pins off to the side for a second. Now, I take my bench block, whether you're using your own or the GP one, just take it, hold it on the side, set it on its side so it'll hold the frame for you. And what you do is take your 050 Allen wrench, you're going to push down on the plastic part of the takedown, a little detent it has, and you can turn it, and literally the takedown bar will come right on out. Now, notice I'm still holding this. Turn it upside down, let it go into your hand. Mostly because this is not a super stout spring, as you can feel while you're taking it down. It's ease of takedown, but it's got enough that it'll launch this little plastic piece, which is what everything sits on, the bar and all that. If that's gone, you ain't gonna find it. So set those off to the side. We're ready to take the fire control unit, locking block, and trigger out. Excuse me. Alright, so I like to push up on the trigger. Alright, get it going. We're getting ready to pull the locking block out, and it may be stiff. That's where your small flathead comes in. You got a little cavity right here. Just give it a little help. Just push it up a little bit. Now, before we take this out, just like the G3, G2c, G2s, they still use the little bitty BB detent for the safety. So when we pull this out, we want to make sure that we keep our thumb. This little lifter piece can fall off. You can actually remove the whole fire control unit like that, keeping that thing, and just set it down. If you leave it just like that, it won't fall out. If it does fall out, just try not to lose it, because that thing is tiny. So now we're going to pull the locking block and the trigger assembly out. Set the frame out of the way for a second. We'll take our 1/16 and we're going to push the trigger pivot out. We're going to pull the trigger assembly out. Set the locking block off to the side with the trigger pivot. Now, these pins drive from opposite directions, both on the C and the G3, G3c. Alright, your trigger bar and trigger return spring drive from right to left, and then the safety blade drives from left to right. And you'll know this because when you go to pull it out, there'll be knurled edges on each side. Okay, if you get confused when you go to put this back together later into the new stuff, it's not going to matter, because on the new one, everything comes in from the right side. Okay, it's just easier that way. And the holes are a little tight, so take your 1/16 if you need to, and just kind of open up that side a little bit. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take the safety blade out first. So you take and you'll put it on, take your 1/16, put it on the pin for the safety. Tap that bad boy out. Okay. As you can see, there's the knurling. You'll just kind of pop it out of the trigger. You'll turn the safety blade completely perpendicular and pull it out. All right, let's talk about the safety blade for a second. When the flat face comes out, you'll reuse this spring on it for the safety that comes with it. But as you can see, like say you take this part and this little spring falls off, you won't be able to see it in the video. But there's a little bitty hole right here. All right, so line that up at the hole, put it over the pivot, set it down just like that so you don't lose that little spring. Now comes the super fun one. We're going to drive from right to left with our 1/16. Now this one I always drive all the way through, and I'm going to tell you why. Because we're going to very gently start taking this out and see how it immediately turns. That's good. Keep your thumb over the back of the trigger because that's still under spring tension. Still under spring tension. Pull it out, the spring will pop up and hit your thumb instead of taking off. Okay, so we're done with our stock trigger. Okay, now what I like to do before I install the short stroke is I will make sure the 1/8 over travel screw is flush with the top. Don't have it. See if I can get this thing to focus. You don't want it sticking out like that. You want it flush. Okay, so that's where we're going to start at. All right, guys, brace yourself. So, easiest way to do this with the few minor changes we made, we're keeping both pins coming from the right side. So what this allows you to do is be able to, ideally, we may still have to bust out the vise, but so far I've been able to do it without the vise. We'll get the pin started, and if the hole's a little tight, and yeah, it's Taurus, the pins might be a little oversized, no big deal. Take your needle nose, grab a hold of the knurled end, insert, and give it a tap. Get it started, okay? Obviously, make sure it's straight. If you want, you can drive it all the way through, all right? And then just drive it right back out. If it'll cooperate with me. All right. So now what we're going to do, well, since we've done that, we'll clean out a little bit of the flashing there. We're going to pull this pin till it sits right about there. And the reason we're doing that is we're going to take the trigger bar and put it on the pin, but we kind of want everything out of the way. So we want the trigger bar to sit flush on the pin, just like that, so that we can take and put in our trigger return spring. Now, here's how you can do this without using a vise. Stick the trigger return spring down in there. You'll see the shelf right here. It's hard to see in the camera, but there's a little shelf that arm's going to lay on. And you can have the spring in front of the trigger bar. I want you to hear me say this. While we're assembling, you can have the trigger return spring in front of the trigger bar, because once we get it all the way through, the pin all the way through, we're just going to pull this part of the trigger bar back, or trigger return spring back, and get it out of the way of the actual bar. As we push the bar forward, it'll hook behind it. Everything's easy peasy. Set it down on your bench block. You take your 1/16 like this, and you can push down while you're pushing that pin through, okay? So we've got our spring, we've got our trigger return. So now we have to make sure our angle's correct, and you'll see your pin. Just push down on it. Oh, I open, hold on. I'm bleeding on stuff. Let me get a... Alright guys, sorry about that. I had to re-super glue my thumb. show you what I did while I was waiting for that to dry. Notice we're all set up now. So what I did was hold it down, get everything lined up, and take the polymer side, tap it home. Okay, so then you'll take your pick, and your trigger return spring will be in front of the trigger bar. You'll pull the trigger bar back, you'll hook it, and just pull it back, and it'll seat right there. Okay, so now we're going to install the safety. And you see this shelf right here? This is where it's going to get a little tricky. You come in behind it first, while at the same time getting that spring to go into its little slot. So I get it going, I'll get it up over it, I get everything lined up, so our holes there all lined up. Remember, unlike the stock pin, we can drive everything from the right side, or the stock trigger, correction, not the pin. Alright, so we're going to make sure safety blade's functioning, push on it, make sure it pops out. We're ready to reassemble everything. So first we're going to take and we're going to put our trigger assembly back in. You're going to take and line up your takedown, or your slide lock to the pivot hole in the trigger. Take and, well, you probably have to use your brass on that one. Just take your brass side or your brass hammer and drive it on home. Again, you got to get it all lined up, and what I usually do, except it's a little harder to do on the locking block because everything in the way, if you can catch a corner just right, you can take the polymer hammer, line everything up, and just tap on the locking block. But it's usually easier said than done. So try and hold it like that, and then just finish tapping that thing through, but it likes to move around. I just ripped my thumb back open. I'm having a rough Thursday, guys. Oh, it hates me. Try it this way. You stay just like that. I'm gonna hammer you home. Maybe. This is the worst part of this whole thing. Outside of redoing the trigger return spring, is just getting this stupid thing, because as soon as you start tapping on it, it all wants to move around. Because, you know, why not? And you'll feel it once it gets going. Just give it a good tap through. Maybe it's just gonna keep fighting me. We're gonna throw stuff in the floor. And I got another one up here. Alright, so let's get this thing. Because it all has to be perfectly in place for it to go on through. Sometimes what you may have to do is just take one of your bigger punches, line it up on the pin, get everything lined up, and then use your polymer hammer from this side. Use our bench block as the holder. It's like, no. Nothing you show is going to work because we're going to be a jerk today. There we go. So after all that, I've got it lined up. Alright, make sure that it's equidistant. Brandon's favorite 25-cent word, okay? So we're equidistant. Everything moves. You can hold the trigger bar, move the trigger. Alright, so now we're ready to put everything back in the frame. Guess I better retrieve my 1/16 I threw in the floor. We're gonna need it. Pardon me. All right, so picking the fire control unit back up again. Make sure that thing's there. Hold the safety in place so your detent doesn't fall out. You're gonna hook it just like that. Take your lifter, stick it right there. I like the way you do it right there. All right, now again, we'll take our bench block and turn it sideways. We can lay the frame right here so it'll kind of hold it for us. And we can use both hands, starting with the locking block, pushing it down in. Oh, I went too far forward. All right, so that's about where you want it. And then we're gonna bring this bad boy down. There we go. All at the same time. Before we put our pins in, we'll hold everything down. Just pull on the trigger first without touching the safety. All right, safety works, trigger bar moves, everything's moving. Okay, so now we can finish putting it together. So we're going to start at the rear with our second smallest frame pin. Start it. Then our 1/16 frame pin. And then our biggest frame pin. And again, we're going to use our punches to make sure that the pins are equidistant, especially on the back. If you got one of these pins sticking out one side or the other, you're going to know it while you're shooting because it's going to take some skin. And we'll take our 1/16, drive that home. We're equidistant. All right, we're going to take our takedown spring, put it in, takedown plunger. I'm going to stick it in there. Sometimes it's easier to stick them in at the same time. Sometimes it doesn't cooperate. Then we're going to take our bench block, turn it on the side again, take our 050. We're going to start our takedown. Actually, you can use your 1/16 for this, much flatter. Stick it on there. Once you get it on there, you can literally take your finger, push down on it, push the takedown in. You'll hear it pop in place. It's in. So now we're ready to put our slide on and function test. First, we're going to stick the safety on, pull the trigger. Nothing should happen. Safety off. Trigger without safety blade. Nothing should happen. Trigger, safety blade, everything together. Reset. All right, we're good. So we function test correctly. Single actions there, double actions there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our 050 Allen wrench and pull the trigger. And you're gonna, so you can get to your pre-travel adjustment. Give it about 3-4 turns, good turns, not quarter inch, like full turns, because what we're trying to do is stop the double action. All right. Give it some more, because we'll adjust back once we lose double action. All right. All right, so we've lost our double action. That's what I want. Go ahead and rack it. Make sure we still have single. We do. We just have no restrike. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take that same 050 Allen wrench and you're going to go 1/4 turn counterclockwise. Test. You're going to do that until you get your double action reset. Get in there. There we go. And that's it. You're set. You're all done. And you're going to pull probably 10%, 15% of the long double action pull out. So if you have a misfire, click, bang, nothing, you don't have as far to travel for the restrike to capability. Still maintains the nice trigger that these things have. We've rounded it a little bit on the front, brought the pocket up a slight bit, and honestly, it feels really good in the hand. It feels great, and I think people are really going to enjoy it. And that's going to wrap this one up, guys. If you got any questions, feel free to email me at tech, that's Tango Echo Charlie Hotel, at gallowayprecision.com. Be sure to follow us on social media. Links will be down in the description below. And that's going to be it, guys. As always, be safe, be accurate,